Hey everybody, Kelly Andrews from Code.ExactTarget here. Today we're going to look at the Fuel SDKs. We're going to take a look at how they're structured, talk a little bit about why they were created, and then dive into some code samples to help get you up and running and building your apps. So currently ExactTarget has a SOAP and a REST API that allows you to interface with the ExactTarget platform. The SDK's sole purpose was to abstract out this layer by using a layer of methods on top of these to allow you to use HTTP methods like get, put, post, patch, and delete. This removes all decision making from your application build and gives you one way to interface with ExactTarget. On top of the methods layer, we added an objects layer which abstracts it even further and now allows you to call specific object types like subscriber, list, or email on top of the methods. It's good to point out here though that the methods layer allows you to implement any object that's not already predefined in the SDK. That way, truly the SDK is unlimited. They just may not all be built out in the objects in your version. On top of the objects is the sugar methods layer, and this is where the strength of the SDK really shines, because now at this point you're going to be able to do one line of code and do complex functionality without having to go through and write it all out. This really is going to increase your productivity and your time to live on your application. So let's get looking at some code. So today we're going to be going over the PHP version of the SDK, and I've already downloaded the repo from GitHub. You can find the link to that on code.exacttarget.com and go under the SDK section on the right hand nav menu. Alright, so let's take a look at the code. Top of my file, you'll see there are two specific lines that you have to have. There's a require, which you're going to pull in the whole library, and then the myClient variable basically is setting up a new ET client. It's creating an auth stub, so it's giving you the authorization based on the config.php file that you've updated. You'll see that that's used quite a bit throughout the whole process, but essentially that's your entire authorization. Without that, you can't do anything. So you have to have those two lines right at the beginning, and you really only need to call them once. But once we have those, we're going to first go through a method call. And the method call takes three different things. First off, it's going to take an auth stub. It's going to take an object type. And it's going to take a list of properties. So let's look at each one of these individually. Today we're going to be looking at the add subscriber to a list. So the object type is going to be subscriber. The auth stub, as I've already mentioned, is myClient. So anytime that you're required to do an auth stub, you're going to use the client that you've already set up. I need to make sure that C's lowercase or I'm going to have some problems. And then the properties is actually an array. So let's take a look at that real quick. We're going to have two properties in the array. We're going to have email address, and those need to be in quotes. And the second one is going to be lists. And lists is an array. Alright, so let's look at lists first. So lists is an array. I'm going to use the key of ID. And then the ID is going to be there's a numerical ID on every list, which you can look up inside your account under the Properties tab. I just happen to know what mine is. It's 26228, and that's my list ID. And under email address, let's make up something fake. Let's do subscriber1 at ph.exacttarget.com. Okay, so we have an auth stub, we have an object type, we have a property. So we have all our requirements. At this point, what we're going to do is I'm going to add a response variable. and eventually we're going to print this out on the page. I'm going to do a new ET post. Alright, so just like any other HTTP post, I'm going to pass in my requirements. So auth stub, object type, and properties. Okay, so all we have to do at this point is then print out the response to the page. Obviously in okay, so at this point, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to print readable response. And that's just going to show us that it's complete. Obviously in your application you may do a whole host of other things. But for simplification, we're just going to print this out. Okay, so here I am. I'm in my all subscribers. Let me show you my list. So I have my demo list, which is that ID that I put in earlier. And let me call my page here. Okay, so the post object brings us back a few things. It gives us a code. Actually, let me look at this on the source. There we go. That looks a lot better. So the code comes back as a 200, which everyone knows is okay. There's no message, but the results gives us an array. It passes back a status code of OK that the subscriber was created. Gives it an ID back. And then it takes that email address and updates the list object to 26228. So if we go back into, let's go ahead and close this. If we go back into my demo list, we'll see subscriber1 at bh.exacttarget.com was created. Alright, so let's take a look at another example of how to do this. Okay, so that's the method. I'm going to just comment all these out real quick. Now I'm going to do an object. So this is really similar, but in this case, we're not thinking of whether or not we're doing a post or a get. We're actually thinking of the exact object we're using. So in this case, we're going to be using subscriber. So we're going to create a new instance of a subscriber. Okay, so the subscriber object takes a few things. It's going to take an auth stub, which by now you should be familiar with, and that is my client. Subscriber is also going to take a list of properties. Okay, so the only thing we don't have to do here is we don't have to declare an object type, because using ET_subscriber is already declaring that for us. So the list of properties, as you may have already guessed, is the exact same thing we've just done. So I'm going to copy and paste that. I am going to change subscriber1 to subscriber2. Alright, so at this point, we just have to do our response variable. That way we can print out the results again like before. And this time we're going to do subscriber. We're going to call the post method on the subscriber object. Let's go ahead and save that. Go over to Chrome. I'm going to run this page again. Okay, and it looks like we got our results back. And this time, obviously, the subscriber 2 is what we passed in. And it looks like they were added to the list. Okay, we got a status message back, created subscriber. So we have shown you how to do it as a method. I've shown you how to do it as an object. Now I'm going to show you the really fun part, and we're going to do this as a sugar method. So this is my favorite. We're actually going to just print out the response directly, which gets you really excited because this is one line of code. So we're going to take the my client, so the auth stub object. we're going to take the method that's on that whole object called add subscriber to capital to list. Okay. At this point, we pass in an email address as a string. I'll use the number 3 this time. And then we can add them to multiple lists the same way, but this time we simplified it and we remove the ID. So all you have to actually do here is just provide a comma separated list, an array of the IDs themselves, and we take care of the lists and the ID and all that for you. So it's one line of code, just like that. Let's go ahead and run that bit of code as well. And we get our status back as okay, created subscriber, subscriber 3. If we go back and look at all subscribers, we have subscriber 1, 2, and 3. Demo list shows 3 subscriber count. 1, 2, and 3. So add subscriber to a list. So that does it for me and the Fuel PHP SDK for today, and hope to see you again soon.